Hey guys, how's it going? Hope you're doing well. My name is Crown, and today I'm going to read you some very interesting stories that I hope that you're gonna love. And now, without further ado, let's go!
I work at this old office building that got converted into a bunch of retail spaces and small businesses. The building owner is great to work with, and most of the store owners know me by now. I've always been laid back about enforcing rules as long as things don't get out of hand, and nobody complains. That Saturday started off quiet. Weekends are usually slow since a lot of the offices are closed. I was at my desk catching up on paperwork when I got a call about loud music coming from somewhere in the building. Standard stuff. I had to go check it out. I took the stairs up, going floor by floor to find where the noise was coming from. By the time I hit the third floor, I could already hear it. Music was pumping from the new nail salon that had just opened a few weeks ago. I made a mental note and continued walking around, decided to hit the restroom while I was up there. On my way back, I knocked on the salon door. One of the workers answered. I apologized for bothering her and explained that I'd received a noise complaint. I told her I knew it was the weekend and not many people were around, but I had to ask her to lower the volume. She said okay and mentioned she didn't think it was too loud. I thanked her for cooperating. She shut the door right in my face. Not the friendliest response, but whatever. I dealt with worse. I finished checking the other floors, confirmed the music wasn't bleeding through anywhere else, and headed back down to my desk. Problem solved? Or so I thought. About 40 minutes passed. I was going through some reports when this same worker came walking up to my desk. Her face was red and she looked furious. She immediately called me a liar. I was confused and asked her what she meant. She said I told her I got a complaint against her, but she'd just gone to all the floors, and nobody said they complained about her. I tried to tell her she misunderstood what I said, but she cut me off before I could explain. She told me not to try to backtrack and called me a liar again. Then she said she was going to get me fired for harassing her and that she'd called her boss, who was calling the building owner. Now I was starting to get concerned. This was escalating fast over nothing. I kept my voice level and professional. I told her I was sorry she felt that way, but she needed to return to her workstation because she was causing a scene in front of clients. I warned her that if she didn't leave, I'd have no choice but to walk her out of the building, since the site had a zero-tolerance policy for these kinds of events. She yelled that she was going to get me fired for this and then stormed off toward the elevators, still making a scene. A couple of clients in the lobby were staring. Great. An hour later, my phone rang. It was my boss on a conference call with the building owner. My boss explained that they'd received a wild complaint about me misbehaving on site and wanted to get my side of things before deciding what to do next. The building owner chimed in and said she agreed, especially since the allegations were really out of character for me. She had confidence in my performance. I explained everything that happened, step by step, how I knocked politely, asked her to turn down the music, thanked her, and left. Then how she came down later and started accusing me of lying. My boss said that sounded more like me, but it was now a he said she said situation. He explained that the worker was claiming I'd forced my way into her workspace and yelled at the top of my lungs at her to turn the music down while screaming obscenities and racist remarks at her in front of her clients. She also claimed I threatened her life if I had to come back up there. She said she felt like her life was in danger as long as I was working so close to her, and apparently her clients were backing up her story. My blood went cold. This woman was trying to destroy my career and reputation with complete lies, forced my way in, yelling obscenities and racist remarks, threatening her life. None of that happened. I've never even raised my voice at anyone on this job. Then I remembered something. About 6 months ago, after hearing stories from other security officers about false accusations, I'd bought myself a body camera that connects to my phone. And that morning, I'd turned it on before I even clocked in. It had been recording this entire time. I quickly checked the footage on my phone. There it was. Clear audio and video of me knocking politely, our brief conversation, her shutting the door, then later, her coming to my desk and calling me a liar while I stayed calm and professional. Everything. I called my boss back immediately. I told him I'd forgotten about my body camera and that I could prove what I was saying. He sounded relieved and asked me to send him an email with a copy of the footage to review. I asked if I had permission to contact the building owner and let her know. He said I could if I wanted to, and that he'd be calling her after reviewing the footage too. I called the building owner next. When I told her I had video proof of everything, I could literally hear the relief in her voice. She told me to send it to her as soon as possible and gave me her email address. I sent both of them the footage with timestamps marked for each interaction. Then I waited. 2 hours later, I was at my desk when I heard the elevator doors open. Out walked that same worker, sobbing uncontrollably, carrying a box of her belongings. Her head was down and she was being escorted by 2 police officers. She didn't even look in my direction as they walked her out the front door. Later that day, the building owner called me to explain what happened. She contacted the salon owner immediately after watching my footage. The salon owner was apparently furious that her worker had not only lied, but had also gotten clients involved in fabricating a story. While the building owner couldn't directly fire the worker since she didn't own the salon, she made it crystal clear that this person was now permanently banned from the building and all its facilities. She reminded the salon owner that while she might run things inside her shop, everyone had to answer to the building owner once they stepped outside those doors. And here's the thing. The building owner was so impressed with how I'd handled everything and how I'd protected both myself and the building's interests that she renegotiated my contract. I got a $5 per hour raise for my outstanding service. A few weeks later, I was at my desk when I saw her walk through the front door, the band worker. She came right up to me, and her whole demeanor was different. She begged me to help her and asked if I could talk to the building owner and get her to cancel the ban. She said she needed this job and kept pleading with me. I told her I couldn't do that and that she brought this on herself. Then she offered to pay me. She asked how much I wanted and mentioned $500, then $1,000. I said no and told her the answer was no. Her face changed. The desperation turned to anger. She threatened that if I didn't help her, she'd call the police and tell them I tried to harass her. I've been recording on my body camera from the moment she walked in. I reached for the desk phone and told her, okay, let's call the building owner right now. I dialed. When the building owner picked up, I explained that the band worker was here, that she'd tried to bribe me, and was now threatening to file a false police report. The building owner asked if I was recording this. I spoke loudly and clearly, saying, yes, ma'am. My body cam was on, and I'd recorded the whole encounter. The worker's eyes went wide when she heard that. She looked at my chest, spotted the camera, and literally ran out the door. A few days later, the salon owner herself came down to my desk. She looked exhausted and embarrassed. She apologized for everything and said that the worker wouldn't be bothering me anymore. She explained that the worker had been arrested for trespassing and verbal harassment. I nodded and thanked her. That body camera was the best investment I ever made. I've been working construction for about 15 years now, and my wife teaches at a local elementary school. We'd been renting a small place in town for way too long, just trying to save up enough for something of our own. When our realtor called us about this house that wasn't even listed yet, we jumped on it. The place was perfect, tucked away on what we thought was several acres of forested land, peaceful, private. The realtor kept going on about all this land we'd own, how we could really spread out and enjoy nature. We were completely sold on the idea. Then we started dealing with all the paperwork and lawyers, and that's when the truth came out. We didn't actually own most of that land around us. Worse yet, someone had already bought the lot right next to us and was planning to build. The thing is, our driveway runs up the side of our house, and that side is really more like our front entrance. So this new house would be right in our face. We were disappointed, sure, but we'd already fallen in love with the place and put down money. We figured it couldn't be that bad. We'd make it work. The guy who bought the lot next door took 2 whole years to build his house. And when I say house, I mean this massive thing that made ours look like a cottage. It completely killed our view of the woods. But I kept my cool the entire time. I let him use our electricity and water for his construction. I figured we'd have to live next to each other for years. maybe decades. So why start off on the wrong foot? There were so many times he inconvenienced us, times where he clearly screwed me over, but I bit my tongue every single time. Stayed friendly, stayed neighborly. During construction, we'd chat sometimes. He'd tell me these stories about having to move from previous houses because of neighbor disputes. He said it like he was some tough guy who didn't take garbage from anyone. I didn't think much of it at the time, should have been a red flag. Things were fine at first after he moved in. His family was huge, 8 kids running around. They seemed super religious, always dressed very conservatively, very clean cut. I'm covered in tattoos, got piercings, ride motorcycles, and I'm into metal music. But I'm not inconsiderate. I keep my music at reasonable levels. I'm respectful. I thought we could coexist just fine despite being different. That first winter, he actually told me I could blow snow from my driveway onto a small strip of his property that sat between our houses. Made sense since the way everything was positioned. That little section was kind of in the middle. I was really careful not to hit his house with snow or anything. Did it a few times without issue. Then one day he just shows up at my door and tells me I need to keep my snow on my own property. I asked him about it since he'd previously said I could use that strip. He said he'd changed his mind and wanted me to keep it on my side. I didn't argue. Whatever. If he wanted to be like that, fine. But that was just the beginning. A few weeks later, he's at my door again telling me that half of my driveway is actually on his property. He said he was thinking about ripping it up and putting a fence there. I asked if we could talk about this reasonably. He just said he was considering his options and left it at that. He never actually did anything, but he kept bringing it up. Anytime there was a disagreement, he'd threaten the driveway thing. He used it to control every situation. He made me move my shed, and this wasn't some tiny garden shed. It was practically a small building. Then he said water runoff from my driveway was a problem and demanded I install 180 feet of French drain. Cost me a fortune. Meanwhile, his 2 downspouts on my side of his house were dumping hundreds of gallons of water onto my property, and he refused to do anything about it. Then came the cameras. One day I noticed he'd installed security cameras, and they were pointed directly at our house, multiple angles. It bothered us, but we didn't say anything at first. We figured maybe he was just being security conscious. But then a couple months later, my wife caught him outside adjusting them, angling them better to cover our driveway and the areas where we hung out in the yard. My wife went over to talk to him. She asked if he could maybe not point those cameras directly at our house because it felt invasive. He told her the cameras were on his property and he could point them wherever he wanted. She came back pretty upset, so I went over there myself. I tried to explain that we weren't trying to cause problems, but that the cameras made us uncomfortable. I asked if he could just angle them toward his own property instead. He got defensive and asked what I was trying to hide, if I was doing something illegal. I told him that wasn't the point, that it was about basic privacy. He said it was his property and his cameras, and I'd have to deal with it. That's when everything I'd been holding back just erupted. We got into this massive screaming match about the driveway, the shed, the drainage, all of it. Things got said that couldn't be taken back. It became crystal clear that we absolutely hated each other. I figured his problem with me was probably about how I looked and what I represented. I'm guessing my tattoos and motorcycles didn't fit his wholesome religious family image. Whatever the reason, the polite neighbor act was over. I decided if he wanted war, he'd get it. I started working on my motorcycles in my garage with both doors wide open, blasting the most extreme death metal I could find. We're talking music with lyrics about demons and violence, stuff I knew would make him crazy. Any chance I got, morning, afternoon, evening, those garage doors were open and the music was pumping. I bought a drone and started flying it around his property. I'd do wheelies on my bike in the driveway, rev the engine, just be as much of a nuisance as I could without breaking any laws. This went on for a couple of months. Then right before Christmas, we saw it. A for sale sign on his lawn. My wife spotted it first and asked if that was what she thought it was. I stood there staring at that sign like it might disappear if I looked away. A few more months passed and we watched them slowly prepare to move. Then came my birthday, and it happened to be their moving day. I watched from my window when they loaded truck after truck with their belongings. Best birthday present ever. The weird thing? Right before Christmas, he'd brought over this gift basket. Just showed up at the door with this nice basket full of expensive stuff. My wife accepted it because she's too polite, but it made me furious. That was the kind of mind game he played. He'd wave at us, say hello, act all friendly, then turn around and do something to start a problem. I'll never understand that kind of behavior. After they moved out, the house sat empty for a bit before new neighbors moved in. These people are the complete opposite. They're workaholics who leave at 6 in the morning and don't get home until 9 at night. They're quiet, keep to themselves, never cause any problems. We wave when we see each other, but otherwise everyone just minds their own business. I still work on my bikes in the garage sometimes, but I don't blast the music anymore. Don't need to. I can actually enjoy my property now without feeling like I'm being watched, or judged, or threatened. My wife and I can have friends over without worrying about cameras pointed at us. We can use our driveway without someone claiming they own half of it. That guy built his dream house, this massive place that probably cost him a fortune, and he couldn't even last 2 years there because he couldn't stand having a neighbor who didn't fit his perfect little image. He uprooted his wife and 8 kids, had to sell at who knows what price, all because he couldn't handle some loud music and a drone. I think about it sometimes when I'm out in my garage working on my bike. He went through all that trouble, all that construction, all that money, and in the end he's the one who had to leave. Meanwhile, I'm still here, enjoying my property, my music, my life. The shed I had to move is still sitting there. The expensive French drain I installed still works perfectly. And now I don't have someone breathing down my neck about every little thing. My wife sometimes wonders if we should have handled things differently, been more accommodating. But I remind her of all the times we tried. All the times I bit my tongue during construction. All the times we tried to work with him on the driveway situation. The polite conversation she had about the cameras before I got involved. We gave him every opportunity to be reasonable, and he chose conflict every single time. The new neighbors work so much they're barely home, which suits us just fine. Their house still blocks our view, but at least we don't have to deal with constant drama. No threats about property lines, no cameras watching our every move, no passive-aggressive gift baskets, while simultaneously making our lives difficult. Life is good now, really good. I've been cooking for my family for 17 years. Every single meal, every single day. 5 kids means a lot of mouths to feed, and I got good at it. My husband can cook when he wants to, but he just doesn't. That's always been my job. Last week I had my second total hip replacement. I'm 40 years old with early onset osteoarthritis, so this isn't new to me. I had my first replacement back in 2018. I knew what I was getting into. The pain, the recovery, the crutches, the strong medications that make everything fuzzy. What I didn't know was that I couldn't trust my own husband to take care of me. Before the surgery, I ordered those meal kit deliveries. The kind where everything comes pre-portioned and there's a recipe card with pictures. I thought it would make things easier for him since I'd be basically helpless for the first week or two. I was working full-time right up until the day before surgery and was already in so much pain that meal prepping wasn't an option. He knew he was in charge of feeding the family. He knew I'd be recovering. He agreed to handle it. The first 2 days home weren't terrible. Nothing great, but I was eating. Then, yesterday happened. For breakfast, he brought me a banana and a cup of tea. That's it. I had to ask for 1 slice of toast. My stomach was already growling by mid-morning, but I was trying to be patient. The pain medications make me nauseous if I don't eat enough. But I didn't want to seem demanding. Lunch was half a small plate of broccoli and sweet potato. No protein, no substance, just vegetables. I ate it because I was starving, but by 7 p.m. that evening, I was in serious pain and desperate for real food. I called out from the bedroom and asked him what he was making for dinner. He said he was starting it now. When I asked what it was, he said he was defrosting chicken breast for one of those meal kit things. Defrosting. At 7 p.m., when I've been asking about dinner since 6 p.m., I asked him if he was serious about defrosting frozen chicken at that hour. He said yes and that it would be ready soon. I started yelling at him to just bring me something from the fridge because I was starving. He disappeared for a few minutes. When he came back, he said there was leftover lasagna from the neighbor and he would heat that up instead. The neighbor had been kind enough to drop off store-bought lasagna the day before. Not homemade, just a basic frozen kind from the supermarket. Better than nothing, I thought. But when he brought it to me, I could see it was just pasta and sauce. Barely any meat. I yelled again about how there was no protein in it and how I'd barely eaten all day. I said I couldn't find something proper to feed me after 17 years of me cooking for this family. I said I couldn't even trust him to feed me one decent meal. He got angry then. Really angry. He asked me if I even wanted food and pointed out that he was offering me chicken or lasagna with salad. He wanted to know what more I could possibly want and how I could be mad when he was giving me choices. I felt like I'd been slapped. Here I was, helpless on crutches, in pain, dependent on him for basic survival, and he was acting like he was doing me some huge favor by microwaving leftovers. I just said to bring the lasagna. He brought it. I ate it in silence while he left the room. I heard him turn on the television. After I finished, I lay there staring at the empty plate beside my bed, unable to even carry it to the kitchen myself. The anger built up inside me until I couldn't stand it anymore. I grabbed my phone and sent him a text, even though he was just in the other room. I wrote that I didn't think I would have to spell it out, but feeding a person was not difficult. I said his plan of defrosting frozen chicken at 7 p.m. was ridiculous, and asked him to please have a nutritious meal for me tomorrow. I wrote that the trust I had for him had been going for a while now, but this was a huge low. I added that for him to throw a fit and try to make me look like the crazy one was too much, and I ended with saying screw you if you can't apologize. I hit send. Then I waited. No response. No sound from the living room except the television. I eventually fell asleep. This morning he got up and went to work like nothing happened. Didn't say a word to me. Our 16-year-old daughter stayed home to help me during the day, and she fed me properly. Toast with eggs for breakfast, a sandwich with turkey and cheese for lunch. She even cut up an apple for me. She's 16 and she understood what I needed better than my husband of nearly 20 years. He came home at 6 p.m. tonight. Still nothing. No acknowledgement of my text. No apology. No explanation. At 7 p.m., he brought me dinner. The chicken meal he'd started defrosting the night before. He set the plate down next to me without a word and left. I could hear him settle in front of the television again. I ate the chicken. It was fine. When I finished, I realized I couldn't take the plate back to the kitchen. It sat there beside me, getting cold and greasy while I tried to figure out what to do. 10 minutes later, I needed my pain medication. I used my crutches to hobble out of the bedroom, past him sitting on the couch. He didn't look up. I struggled to get a glass, fill it with ice water, and get back to the bedroom with everything while balancing on crutches. It was obvious I was struggling. He watched me walk past him twice and said nothing. I took my medication and walked back through the living room on my way to bed. I said goodnight, trying to see if he would say anything at all. Nothing. He stared at the television like I wasn't even there. Now he's in bed next to me, nearly asleep. He hasn't said one word to me all day. Not one question about how I was feeling or if I needed anything. Just silence. I'm lying here in pain, dependent on someone who apparently can't be bothered to care, and wondering how I got to this point. Wondering if I mattered to him at all. Wondering if 17 years of taking care of everything meant anything. Or if I was just convenient. My phone is on the nightstand. The text I sent him last night is still sitting there, unread or ignored. The trust is gone, and I don't know if it's coming back. And now we have reached the end of today's stories. Thank you for watching, and see you next time.